Hey guys, happy Friday! Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Marvel Legends Wolfsbane 6-inch action figure. This is coming in early courtesy of my friendly neighborhood store Robo, so shout out to him. Let's have a quick look at the box. On top we have the Marvel logo. Hasbro could have gone with the X Factor one, but I suppose it's just part of some decision based on the box packaging. Down to the bottom we have the product information. And on the side, artwork of Wolfsbane screaming. Onto the back, that same artwork of Wolfsbane, description of the character, rest of the figures in the wave, and more product information. Down to that last side is the same artwork. And let's go ahead and get this one open. Out of the box we have the Zabu Build-A-Figure body. Wolfsbane comes packed with two alternate hands on the plastic tray. The only accessories she comes with are two alternate fists. These are cast in an orange-brown plastic with furry sculpted detail on the back of the hands and nails for her thumb on the inside. The two fists articulate inwards as well as outwards. And naturally these two fists pop onto the figure just fine, so you have options relating to her hands. But I do wish that she did come with an alternate head. Preferably one that's screaming with the eyes whited out, just like the artwork on the box. For Wolfsbane sculpt, there's a fair bit of reuse, but it's really not obvious thanks to a lot of newly sculpted parts. Her head sculpt is brand new as compared to the previous Wolfsbane on the New Mutants body, and you can see that the head sculpt is night and day, the new one being so much better. Her furry arms and legs, as well as the lower torso of that X Factor uniform, are also new parts. Her hands and feet are reused from Tigra, while her upper torso of that X Factor uniform is reused from Polaris. So overall the reuse is really not very obvious. Her proportions do look a little weird, with her legs looking a little thick, but I'll put that down to the sculpting of the furry texture on her limbs, which is really essential to the character's design. However, having thick bushy fur translated into plastic sculpting does make her look a little bottom heavy. I do also hope that these parts made for Wolfsbane would make a great basis for Hasbro to produce the X-Force Feral. Wolfsbane's head sculpt is massively improved thanks to the printing technique for her facial features. Her eyes look much more alive compared to the previous version, and there's very sharp detailing for her eyebrows down to her teeth and lips, so I'm pretty impressed. Her hair sculpt is also much more reminiscent of her design in the comics, being a separate plastic piece that's attached to the head, but that means it could be executed a little sloppy, so you can see a small gap between that hair sculpt and her head. It's nice to see that she's got sculpted ears as well, and her larger hair sculpt just brings more drama to this character. I like that the hair sculpt also has a bit of overspray to bring out the textures in the hair. So overall I can say I'm quite pleased with the head sculpt. Her torso is reused from Polaris, but it's hard to tell because of the way that it's executed. Instead of the yellow paint on the blue plastic for Polaris, this time it's blue paint on the yellow plastic. Yellow paint is tricky to pull off, and therefore reversing the colors makes the execution on Wolfsbane look much neater as compared to the more patchy yellow on Polaris. The X Factor logo is very clean, along with the applications of silver paint for the zip, so these little details pop and look so much better than the Polaris uniform. Likewise, the lower torso is yellow plastic with blue paint for the stripes down the side and silver for the buckles on her belt. The big belt is also very characteristic of the character's design. Her arms are the same orange-brown plastic with furry sculpted detail from her shoulders all the way down to her hands. The back of the forearms, she's got a tuft of thick fur, and this is given some overspray to bring out texture in the sculpting, which leads me to my main gripe with the furry texture and sculpting across the entire figure's limbs. We only see that overspray in very small parts. I would much rather Hasbro have applied it more uniformly on all her furry limbs, so that way the sculpting would have been emphasized much more uniformly over the body. We see more of the same furry sculpting on her legs, and that same overspray once again on the furry tufts on the back of her calves. So aside from not having more uniform overspray on the furry textures on her body, I think this figure is pretty well executed, with a good balance of newly sculpted and reused parts. For articulation, her head's on a ball hinge, so it goes 360, getting a decent bit of sideways tilt as well because of the room in that ball joint. Looking down that much, and up a very impressive range. Swivel hinge at the shoulders, so it spins 360 with a slight feeling of detents. Going out that far, upper bicep swivel, Double jointed elbows with the pins concealed for very good range. Swivel hinge at the wrist for 360 going in as well as out. Ball joint at the torso, so she does spin 360. Decent bit of sideways tilting, going back that far and forward, but this is too limited for an agile character like Wolfsbane. Ball joints at the hips that go out just that much, and forward and backward. Again, this range is very limited for an agile character like Wolfsbane, so I'm gonna look at possibly modifying her hips. Upper thigh swivel for 360. Double jointed knees with the pins concealed once more, also getting a decent bit of range, and this is limited by that thick furry sculpt on her calf. And finally, she's got ankle tilt that goes up that much, as well as down, and ankle pivot that goes outwards and inwards. Considering the character's design, I would say her scheme of articulation is barely sufficient. You can only get her into wide standing action stances, which is a bit disappointing, considering the limited range in her torso as well as her hips. This is as far as she goes crunching forward and getting her legs up. There's almost no chance of getting her into a crouching stance or a superhero landing. Whereas on the older New Mutant's body, of course I had already modified her torso, but she could still already get some decent range in her hips to get her into a semi-decent crouching or superhero landing stance. So the new Wolfsbane is definitely due some modifications. Wolfsbane stands at about 6¼ inches, and that's about 15½ centimeters. For size comparisons, here she is with X-Men, here she is with X-Force, and with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And with Wolfsbane, I think we've completed the X-Factor lineup. I'm really pleased with how all of them look together displayed like this. And for comparisons with other lines, here she is with G.I. Joe Classified Series and Star Wars Black Series. Despite the lack of paintwork on her fur and the poor articulation scheme, I'm fairly pleased to have Wolfsbane in hand to complete the X-Factor team. The reused parts on her are not obvious thanks to smart use of materials and paint, especially on her uniform torso, and her head sculpt is miles better than her previous version. Stay tuned to my channel, I promise to put up a short video to improve her articulation. Please like and share this video, let me know what you think in the comments below, subscribe to my channel, or even hit that super thanks button. Thanks for watching, take care, and stay safe.